right, I'm going to go ahead and call this work session to order on the upgrade of computer assessment mass appraisal CAMA system. Let's start with introductions.
Peterson, Christopher Constance,
Felix Rivera.
Jack Amos, Professor.
Susie Marshall, OIT.
Dan Moore, City Treasurer.
Justin Martin, OIT.
Alex Lipka, Chief Fiscal Officer.
Right. And then on the phone, we have John Middleton.
Here.
Crystal Kennedy.
Here.
Doris Dunbar.
Here.
Austin Quinn Davidson.
Here.
And any other assembly members? All right. So for folks on the phone, as usual, please text me if you want to get in the queue. And then, so this is a work session that was requested by the administration to give us an update on the project. So I will turn it over to Mr. Davis.
Yeah, so I would say thanks for everyone for taking the time with everything. So we do have an agenda, and so it's going to be a co-presentation here. Susie's going to present the first half of the presentation, and then we'll get into municipal code and code changes, and then I'll take it off from there.
All right. And we're looking at, do the people on the phone have
They do.
presentation?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Susie Marshall, Chief Information Technology Officer. So kind of what is CAMA? CAMA is the computer-assisted mass appraisal system. This system, it supports property appraisal and tax billing, and it is currently 30-year-old technology. It has been running on a mainframe for 30 years. We are having, in addition to it being old technology, it's difficult to find technical support for the old system, and it's no longer supported by the vendor. And any system change is a really huge effort because we have to find the people and it takes time, it takes forever. So that is why we are currently where we are today with upgrading it to new technology. So we're using the vendor, so CAMA, the vendor of that software that we're using is Tyler Technologies.
You might tell them page.
Oh, sorry, I'm on page 4. Thank you. So we are using the actual vendor that owns the software to do the upgrade. We are installing and configuring the latest version of the software, and that is called IAS World. We are moving off the mainframe, and we're going to run on current technologies, Microsoft servers. And we're deploying a off-the-shelf philosophy, so we're changing our business process to match the new features instead of trying to say, we did this 30 years ago, let's make the new system look like the old system. So we are, we're upgrading using the off-the-shelf philosophy. And we will, this will also allow us to be able to do any kind of code changes more quickly and be more responsive to the business and the community needs. Current go live estimate is 2021 quarter 3.
Great. Just for the record, I want to note that we've been joined by Ms. LaFrance. Go ahead.
All right. Page 5. So our current timeline is, I don't know if I need to go into every phase, but basically the plan is to go live by quarter 3 of 2021. Right now we are currently in phase 3, which is to build and validate the new system. So far that's going as planned. This is kind of just a high level view of what the project timeline is. So moving on to page 6. I'm just cranking through this, so questions, let me know. To do this upgrade, we have capital funds secured that we secured back in 2017 to do this project. So right now the capital budget for it is $7.173 million, and that was with AR 217-335. Right now, as we go, if we look at system licenses, our services, all of our labor, I just think probably what's good to notice is that we are currently estimating that we're only going to spend 5.3 of that instead of 7.1 million. That's our projected to go to be under and to spend less money on the systemization method. We are really watching the numbers close. I know we have a little history that we don't want to repeat. So that's why we're extra vigilant and really focusing on that. So, any questions on the upgrade itself? So I will hand it over to Jack.
Yeah, so I do have a question. Also, want to see Miss Allard. Are you with us now? So she texted me that she's waiting to be let in. Maybe she's in the room.
I'll press her email.
Thanks. Mr. Weddleton.
Well, thanks. So this, you said that it will be live the fourth quarter of 2021. Would that affect the assessments then for taxes in 2022?
I will let the business answer that. So Jack, can you answer that?
So we'd be, like I said, we'd be looking to go live right around the fourth quarter of 2021. So the tax year 2022 would be the one where this new system would be on and where the values will be reflected.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And I think right now the questions are basically on the technology. I think Jack is going to do a presentation right after this on the actual substance. But if we have any technology questions, I think that's the time for that.
Can I ask another then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you know, an issue we have now, and maybe forever, is that people will look at you know, a recent appraisal or the sale of a similar house next door and see that it could be substantially different from the amount that they're assessed. And I understand the kind of math assessment is different than individual appraisals, but sometimes we get huge differences between what appears to make sense and what our assessment is. Will this bring things tighter to kind of what people would see in an appraisal?
I would say that the short and indirect answer is we are a non-disclosure state, and it's really a question about the quality of data and quantity of data we can get sometimes with these sales. So I think that for as far as accuracy of valuation, that's probably one of the biggest things that we are up against as mass appraisers is accessing that data. So I don't expect that this system will magically give us a new methodology that would give us more accurate information.
All right, thank you.
Hey, John, this is Alex Lipka, CFO. I just want to add to that. So we do make a very real purpose of what we are trying to accomplish is to try to be as accurate as possible within that framework. So we have over 90,000+ properties, and we know, looking at the sales that we do see, that we are roughly, on average, 96% assessed value relative to market value. So on average, your assessed value is a little bit less. That doesn't mean we won't, from time to time, have an outlier, and we have a whole appeal process for that to happen, if that is the case. But you know, with 99,000 properties and trying to do this in the most efficient way possible, you're always going to sometimes have something that doesn't look as accurate as it could be.
Thank you. Ms. Zolotow?
Thanks. So one of the frustrations right now is we're asking to try to do things around property taxes, and we're told that the system can't handle it. So are there any inherent limitations in the CAMA system that we should be aware of up front? Are there just certain things this can't do from a technology standpoint that we might want it to do? Or, I mean, and you may not know right now, but I think it's something we should think about. Okay. Yeah.
I'll address that. I mean, I think what Susie hit on it earlier, the existing system is near impossible to modify at all. we're going to a system which is going to be much more flexible. So once this goes live, then we will have the ability to make changes in a much more timely manner, which is the whole purpose of why we're doing this in the first place.
Yeah, because in a mainframe environment, you have to have these special coders that do COBOL and old language, and then once it's done, it has to get calculated. And then you never know, maybe that'll impact 50 things over here. And so it's such a fragile environment. That's why we really strive not to do too many updates to it now, especially while we're doing the upgrade. So it should be more flexible, but I mean, we can always identify things that we can't do in the future.
I guess, yeah, the question is, does CAMA say, like, or whoever's selling CAMA say, these are things it just doesn't do? It'd be good to know that.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Go ahead.
Cam, I turn it over to Jeff.
Yeah, so if you could go over to page 7 or slide number 7, I want to talk about some of the ordinance changes that we are going to be proposing here in the future. You can see that there's really 6 broad categories of ordinance changes. There's, mobile home, and I will expand on each one of these. Mobile home, we're looking to change some of the code of aircraft, the $20,000 business exemption for personal property, the business property assessment returns, the property tax due dates, and then also refunds. And so there's a couple reasons why we are bringing these forward. But I think one of the big things is when we are currently right now in the process of this upgrade project. And one of the questions that we really have been having is, if we've been doing something for 20 years, does that really mean we should do it for another 20 years? And really looking at that and really having in mind equity, we've been having in mind efficiency from our process, and then also the improvement for the CAMA system for that process. And so I'll just start running through these and just start introducing each one of these and what we're looking to do. So in slide 8, you go to the mobile homes. Really, in one sentence, what we're looking to do from the standpoint is we're looking to exempt all privately, and I stress privately, mobile homes under the municipal code. So you can see it right there in the middle. All mobile homes right now, they're assessed full and true value. It's roughly about 3% of the total personal property tax roll, to give you an idea of the proportion. We are looking to change that, and we are looking to exempt all private mobile homes, but we'll be looking to still continue to assess mobile homes if it's owned by a business. So I'm a business owner, I own a mobile home park, I have a bunch of mobile homes. I would have to still file a business return form as my livelihood. At the bottom, there's a few benefits that you can see from this. The first one is that it does provide, if I'm a mobile home owner and I get the residential exemption, it would allow me to have a similar tax dollar savings as a residential exemption for a single family home. And the reason why I say is right now, the residential exemption is 20% to $50,000. Average single family home, over $300,000, I get the full $50K. If you have a mobile home, they're generally less expensive, maybe let's just say $30,000. I would have roughly about $6,000 exempt on that. So it kind of gives a actual tax dollar similarity to these lower value homes. The other reason too is it would allow an increase in an assessment and tax collection efficiency. And so let me expand exactly, clarify what I mean by that. I've already alluded that the 3% of the total personal property tax roll is personal property. And we have these mobile homes, they move from various times. They're hard to track for our section for property appraisal, and we spend a disproportionate amount of time trying to assess these. Once they are in the tax roll, you go to then Dan's section, and he spends a disproportionate amount of time trying to collect them. Roughly about 65 to 70% of what is billed is actually collected. So that would eliminate a lot of efficiency from just that perspective. So if there's any questions, we can maybe take them now.
Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has anybody thought what effect this might have on trailer parks being sold and redeveloped into subdivisions? Because they're going to continue to assess the property tax on the people who own the trailer parks. And if that actually increases their cost, they might decide to, because the real estate in some of these trailer parks is worth maybe more valuable than what they're collecting in rents from the owners of the trailers now. And so I don't know what effect it'll have. I'm just wondering if someone has thought about that at all.
Well,
Thank you.
I can maybe expand on that a little bit, and maybe not directly answer the question, but maybe help. So we looked at a couple of things. So the first is we've already discussed that trend that we're seeing that mobile home parks are going away. And so that's some of maybe the thought too with this is that, you know, these mobile homes, the trend is somewhat going away. In the future, I mean, is this really going to be, you know, a problem with it? The second one is that the business owners right now would be, what they're paying now for these business owners' mobile homes would not pay any less or any more than this. So maybe continue to tax the same.
So you're anticipating that their costs will maintain relatively the same?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
All right. Not seeing any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. The next one I want to talk about now, I want to discuss aircraft. And so I'm just going to read this verbatim from what the proposed change is. What we're looking to do is looking to tax non-regular scheduled business aircraft, and I'll explain on what scheduled aircraft is in a minute, to pay a tax based on the weight of the plane. So regular scheduled aircraft, think of that going to be your Alaska Airlines big jet cargo. We assess those based on effectively a ground time. So we're not worried about that. What we're talking about here is non-scheduled, like charter planes, personally owned planes as well. Right now, the current code is that these non-regular scheduled aircraft, they pay a registration tax. $75 for one engine, and if you have two or more, it's $125. And to make a big point here, this does include aircraft that are personally owned, not for business owned. We're looking to change that. You can see there on the right-hand side, we're looking to change these non-regular scheduled business aircraft to pay a tax based on a weight schedule. And we also are looking to not include or effectively exempt to not tax the personally owned airplane. And now let's go to the bottom and I'll show you and tell you some of the benefits of that. So what we're looking for, the first benefit is right now things like snow machines, you know, maybe if I'm a personal owner of a tractor, boats, etc. They're personally owned. Right now we don't tax them. We would just make airplanes commensurate with that. Same thing. You know, treating that the same. The second thing is that we think that this would bring aircrafts such as this for business, non-scheduled, to be closer in equity with other businesses. You know, quite frankly, $75 for single engine, $125 for two is a pretty low tax if you compare it to if it were to be applicable. And would be, you know, looking for something, you know, something in the middle. Again, it'd be a schedule that'd be based on the weight of the plane. So the theory behind that is it would be trying to get you something with a little bit more value. I mean, aircraft are generally hard just because it has so much technology, and it could be the same airplane, airplane A, airplane B, or the same manufacturer, but one has so much more avionics it's hard to really assess these. So we could do this weight, and generally the heavier the plane, the more value it has, and the higher the tax.
Any questions? I see some faces. Mr. Whittleton.
Well, so this is interesting on the planes. So do you have a schedule, like how much would it be by weight, and how much money would be raised with this change?
Generally, what would be is, well, I'll shift it to Dan here.
Yeah, this is Dan Moore, the treasurer. what we found is Kenai Peninsula Borough has a schedule that looks quite reasonable. I think there's about maybe 5 tiers based on weight. And in terms of revenue, right now, aircraft registration tax only brings in about $200,000. It's hardly anything. There's also about 2,500 aircraft that pay that. We would have about 2,000 personal use aircraft that would no longer pay that tax. We'd be left with around 450 business-oriented aircraft. Their range of tax, if we follow the Kenai model, would be, I think, somewhere between $300 and $1,000. So most of them would be in the hundreds of dollars, just like they are now. The overall revenue by taxing business is probably, it's a rough guess, but instead of $200,000, it could be $300,000 or $500,000. It's not a huge change in revenue, but it is a major change in terms of taking the focus away from personal use and keeping the focus on business use. When we researched the code, we did not see any clear rationale or reason why an aircraft that is in business use is not taxed as a business asset. If they were taxed as a business asset, that's ad valorem. Their taxes would be thousands of dollars per aircraft, and that's actually the way it was in the early 90s. So the approach here is to keep it simple so that the new CAMA system can readily track these aircraft, but we're not going all the way to the point of ad valorem. That's a much more complicated exercise to try to value each aircraft individually. So that's the proposal, but it is based on a specific model. It's on Kenai Peninsula Borough's website.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, why do we tax airplanes at all to begin with? This is a question I've had several times, especially out, with owners out at Birchwood Airport. So anyway, what is it that what does the tax pay for? What kind of service do people get from the tax that they pay?
This is Dan Moore again, Mr. Chair, and then Ms. Kennedy. The tax is an area-wide tax. Again, it's only about $200,000, so it is available for any type of area-wide service that the city wants to pay for. It is from way back when, from the early 90s, it was put into place, I believe, to just have yet another source of income to help pay for things like emergency services, so ambulance, there was an aircraft accident or incident, or things like that. But it's not like the fees that they pay for actually using a particular airfield. It's more of a general tax. And we also, with vehicles, we go through DMV, and we used to tax certain other property. But over time, those have gone away, and this is sort of the final piece of all that. So.
Okay, so then would there be an exemption for airports like Birchwood Airport that don't get any municipal services and that already pay inventory tax and property tax as well? That basically handles the roads up to the airport, but being a DOT facility, it's all DOT maintained. So anyway, I'm still trying to figure out, again, that question about what value that tax has to the taxpayer in terms of a service that they get that they're not already paying for leasing their space or paying property taxes. Thanks.
So through the chair, this is Alex Lipka. I think, Ms. Kennedy, what we're getting at is if you are a personal owner of an aircraft that you're going to use just to fly around as your personal toy, for lack of a better word, we are proposing to no longer tax it. What this proposal is saying is if you run a business, we are suggesting that, like every other business, that you should pay some sort of personal property tax. And the proposal here, which is what is already in place down on the Kenai Peninsula, is fairly modest in its impact, but it correctly recognizes that businesses should be taxed for the property that they have.
And I understand. I mean, I absolutely understand, and I'm glad there's the exemption for personal. But again, there are business owners, people using their airplanes for businesses out at Birchwood Airport that are already paying inventory tax and property tax. So I'm just kind of getting back to that question of why why the actual airplane itself when they're already paying other taxes as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Constant?
Yeah, thanks. So this is very similar to the inventory tax, right? It effectively falls under that same branch. The first of the year, this is just property that they own, part of their business, that they will be taxed on, just like they would be for other of their personal properties owned by the business, right? So to me, it seems like it's just bringing into the fold this personal property that has somehow managed to be exempted for a long time, or under just by having a fee. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks. I don't see anything else. Actually, sorry. Ms. Kennedy?
Well, thank you. And I guess, I'm going to kind of split hairs on that a bit because one of the things that, comes to mind for me is we have lots of businesses that have equipment that are necessary for their business. They might have a forklift, or they might even a cash register. I suspect you could consider some kind of business equipment. So do we make distinctions between somebody owning, a forklift versus an airplane? Do we tax the forklift as well?
Yes, we do. Generally, if you are a business owner, we ask that you file a property assessment return with us. And in there's machinery equipment, which would include that forklift that you're referring to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to slide 10, and I'm going to talk here now about this personal property business exemption. This one's fairly simple. We're just looking to increase the business exemption to $50,000. Currently, the first $20,000 of property is exempt, and we're looking to exempt the first $50,000 of property exempt. So there's a few reasons for this when we were looking into it. It's been a while since we have implemented this $20,000 personal property exemption. Just recently, in 2008, we did increase the residential exemption. It was 10% up to $20,000. It's now 20% up to $50,000. And so we're looking at business, and let's make that similar to that property exemption. As well as you can see that bottom one, it does further extend the tax relief to all businesses that file for personal property. So,
Mr. Constant?
What's the economic effect?
there would be roughly, we're looking about maybe a little over 700 businesses that would fall off of this total. It would be roughly about maybe a little, right around $82 million of assessed value that we would basically shift.
Right, and so where does that shift go to? Because we just spent quite a bit of time working on that residential property exemption. Does this then push that onto those property owners, or where does it go?
So $82 million will have a minimal effect in the mill rate. The residential exemption that we did in comparison was in the billions of dollars shifted. And so I would expect that this would have a significantly less impact compared to that residential.
I think it was, Mr. Chair, Mr. Constant, it was in our detail here, because we've done a lot of research, it was about $1.3 million of tax that would be spread to all the taxpayers.
Not $82 million of tax.
Yeah, it's $82 million of assessed value.
Yeah, it's very, very small and it's spread.
Yeah,
hardly noticeable.
one or two mils on that.
Yeah, now the fractions.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, moving on. So slide 11 is talking about this business property assessment return. So I've alluded to this already. We do ask that business owners, if they have personal property, that they file with us. And so what we're looking to do is we're looking to add a penalty for property businesses that don't file with us. Currently, there's a 10% penalty for late file, and there's also and if you don't file, you're a non-filer, there's a 10%. So they're the same. We're looking to change that. We're looking to keep the late filing the same at 10%, but we're looking to increase if you don't file to 20%. And I understand that this may not be the most popular, but there are some benefits aside from that. First, there is going to be, or we would expect, I should say, an increased efficiency for our staff. So non-filers do take a lot of time. We have to research that property, or that business. We have no idea what it is. We have to look at what like businesses it could be. And so we do spend a disproportionate time with that. So we'd like to try to encourage, even if you're late, we'd like to encourage you to file rather than not file at all. The second reason is if I'm a business owner, I'm late, and I see my neighbor over here that didn't file at all, I don't think it would really sit well with me that they get the same time. And so we'd look to try to at least differentiate those between a non-filer and a late one. So.
All right. Not seeing any questions on that.
We're now getting into some of the tax now. And so slide 12 here is talking about the property tax due date. And for this one, what we're looking to do is we're looking for real property. We're looking to change the due date to the end of the month. So you can see there, the current right now for the first and second half of real property due dates, they're right in the middle of the month, June and August 15th. And then the accrual of the interest is also charged that mid-month. And we're looking to propose to change where we just eliminate the actual hard dates in the municipal code and change that to an assembly resolution. And we would then each year do an assembly resolution where the due dates would be at the end of the years. So basically, in the June 15th as it's now, we would change it to June 30th, and at the end, the second payment August 31st. And then also too, that accrual interest would be charged at the next day. So basically, it would be July 1st, for example, instead of mid. So there's a couple benefits from this. The first one is it would allow property owners to have a couple more weeks for paying. And this would also, right now, personal property is at the end of the month, and so we'll just make them similar. So that hopefully eliminates some of the confusion. If I'm a business owner and a real property owner, that I have these different dates.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add quickly to that. This also ties in with that CAMA project that we're doing. The Tyler, which is the name of the company, they actually have, I think, over 1,000 government clients that they service with property taxes. And what they told us is the prevailing standard amongst their clients is a month-end due date and then accrual on the very first day after that. So this is to try to make us consistent with most other cities nationwide, but also to avoid additional special programming with that CAMA project, because this would be a special configuration that they would have to do if we tried to match our old way of doing it and carry forward into the new system. So,
Thank you. Ms. Zolotel?
Thanks. Do you have, so by assembly resolution, so would it be like when we set the mill rate, we would also set the property tax date? I mean, I don't know, I'm thinking about this as just like one more thing that has to be done and we don't want to like lose track of it.
Sure. I think, well, Jack was saying if we would start to do an assembly resolution. We actually do it now. It's required by state law. And so we usually provide an assembly resolution to set due dates about 2 or 3 weeks ahead of when you set mill rates. But that happens every single year, and it's a state requirement.
It's happening so smoothly, I didn't even notice. Great.
Mr. Constant?
Right. Doesn't it seem, though, that we should set those dates as early as possible if we're going to be flexible, like before the beginning of the year, January 1, have those dates established? I think the challenge is for people who plan and budget and try to figure out when their expenses are due, the earlier the better.
What we do is try to maintain flexibility, and with this new system, there will be even more flexibility on due dates. Okay, but we try to keep due dates standard so that taxpayers become very accustomed to when they're due. So the resolution that we do each year, which is required by state law, is basically reflecting the standard over and over and over again. So I don't think there's much mystery year to year as to when the tax due dates are. We could put out a notice or something to give early indication, but in this case, we're actually extending. So we're not making them sooner but later. So they could be done sooner, but I think if we do it closer to the mill rate time, it's kind of in people's head a little bit more. If you did it in January, February, it's many months before the bills even go out. So I think we might lose a little bit of memory just doing it too early. So.
Right, I don't know if I disagree with that, but I think just to your first point there, that the certainty, knowledge of when the tax is going to be due is the thing that gets the tax bills in people's minds. The consistency of that date is valuable.
And we could, Mr. Chair, Mr. Constant, we right now there's a couple references in code that sort of hint at the mid-June, mid-August due dates. They don't make it explicit. If we wanted to, we could make it more explicit in code and then just say except for a special resolution that says otherwise or something. But we can make it very clear that those are the due dates.
That's a better way, I think, is to grant some form of flexibility, but have a date specific that generally is applicable, because people plan this stuff out months and months, years in advance.
Okay, I don't see anyone else. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about, this is the final proposal for the municipal code changes, and then we'll talk about the next thing about the software maintenance service. So this property tax refund, this is the final. This is rather, I guess, a little bit simple. In one sentence, we're just allowing a little bit more ability for taxpayers to transfer money between accounts. Right now, we have current restrictions on access to property taxes being paid from one parcel in relation to another. So, for example, I'm a property owner. I own two properties, property A, property B. I overpaid in property A, and I underpaid in property B. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but the process is I have to get a refund for property A and then pay that back to property B. And so it's this kind of process that we can make a little more streamlined, and that's exactly what we're proposing, is just to be able to transfer one overpayment on one parcel and transfer it over just to another. So there's inherent benefits to that. It would increase our accuracy and timeliness, so we don't have this lag time or transition between refunds and payments. So we would know what would be more timely. Reduce that volume, reduce that processing time between accounts, and then ultimately be increasing our efficiency as we'd be doing less paperwork, and also hopefully making the tax credit.
Mr. Whittleton.
Thanks. So what is the mechanism that would cause someone to overpay? I mean, you get a bill, it has a dollar amount, and you write your check for that amount. Does something else go on? How many people overpay? And why?
Through the chair to Mr. Wilton and Stan Moore, there's about 1,000 refunds we do each year, and what typically happens is multiple parties pay on the same parcel, and they don't really coordinate between themselves, and they're all trying to make sure that they're not late. So we end up having multiple payments on the same account. Sometimes people, property taxpayers, especially if they own multiple parcels, sometimes get confused in terms of which parcel they're paying, or they may just give us a nice rounded amount because they don't know the bill, they want to pay it way in advance. So there's a variety of situations that are like that, but what we're proposing here is if we have high confidence that we know the same owner relates to more than one parcel is underpaid, the other is overpaid, it gives us the authority to go ahead and just move the money and get it cleaned up. So it's something, I think in the old days, this code goes back 35 years. It's when we had things written on cards, we couldn't really coordinate, match up information and verify, it's the same owner, different parcels. Now that we have computers, it's a different story. We can easily try to match and make more sense of the relationship between parcels.
All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Constant.
Yeah, thanks. You just hit the question on the head. The relationship between parcels, are you going to carefully define that in this ordinance? Because your first example was properties related by the same owner, but then your other example was multiple people paying on a single property. And so I imagine there could be some very confusing manners of making determination of how these properties are related. So I think it would be wise to spend some time working through that definition really clearly.
Yeah, and we will, and part of it's going to be designed in the new system. In the code, we can try to make it fairly clear, but yet not too in the weeds. Our fundamental approach is to make sure the owner of the property that is most entitled to the refund or to the balancing out between accounts is the one that benefits. So, but we'll try to give a little bit of clarification in the code language. So.
Thank you. Ms. Zolotel?
Thank you. So it's interesting. So I'm thinking about the privately owned rental properties. So if you have multiple properties in your name, some of them may be personal and some of them may be commercial uses. I mean, they may all be houses. I could see how taking an overpayment in one and just pushing it into another could really mess up someone's ledger in terms of keeping track of their finances and keeping things, separate and discrete. So just something to think about.
Okay. Well,
I don't have any proposed solutions to that, but
it's a good point, and we would use it very carefully. I said earlier, high confidence. It'd have to be a pretty clear-cut case of, this person really, is directly responsible for multiple properties, and the same person is paying for those. So, we're not going to solve all problems in terms of who pays what or circumstances, but where it's clear-cut. Right now, the code says we can't even transfer, and that's extremely restrictive. It's very inefficient. So,
I guess I would suggest, if it's possible, maybe there can be an opt-out, because if you use my rental properties and my property, you would see it would all look the same. You wouldn't know what was going where. And my bookkeeper, which is me, would not be very happy about that. So, because a lot of folks who do offer rental properties in town are DIY, do it yourself, and they try to keep it pretty simple. So I can just see this being
okay.
an issue.
We'll think it through. So thank you for that feedback.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing anything else.
I want to move on to the final portion of this, and we got a few more minutes here.
So before Jack gets into that, I did want to say, so this is us bringing forward to you stuff that we haven't submitted to you yet. So the purpose of this is to get your temperature, what you like, what you don't like. And so please respond back. I think funnel them all through Jack would be great. And so that when we do bring forward final ordinances, that there's been thoroughly thought about in advance.
Okay, thank you.
So, slide 14, if you take a look at that one, this is the software maintenance. So, maybe just put your attention on to the right there. There's a 2018 contract. This is what we signed for the upgrade project. There's Tyler software license. There's implementation services. Both of those are capitalizable from an accounting perspective. At the bottom there, in the red box, I believe, there's the ongoing maintenance. And this is what you'll be seeing on the assembly agenda on Tuesday. What this is this is an operating expense, and this operating expense is for the software maintenance of the new CAMA system. It's a sole source purchase from Tyler Technologies. They are the ones that are the original author, so that there is no alternative substitute. And we're asking for $231,000 for this year, for the base year, with an option to extend for an additional 4 years, for a total not to exceed of about $1.28 million. So, if we could, maybe it might be helpful to put that $231,000 into context. I don't know, Susie, you want to talk about that? Or
Into perspective a little bit, is that right now, so the CAMA operating cost comes out of the OIT budget, and because we have a mainframe, we have to support the mainframe. We are to maintain the mainframe, we are like $750,000 a year. We don't pay a software maintenance cost because it's so old, there was no option to do that. So, $750,000 a year now, and then once we go live with the new system, we won't have to pay this anymore. We will retire the mainframe. So, on an ongoing basis, starting in 2022, we should have a rough 500K savings in operating budget. You have the 231 with the annual maintenance costs, and then we'll be reducing the budget by 750,000 because of the mainframe. So, it'll be a net positive in 2020.
Thank you.
So that's all that we have. I would say probably on behalf of all of us, we thank your time, and like Alex said, we're here to listen to get temperature check.
Thanks. So a couple of questions from me since I'm not seeing anyone else. So first is, Mr. Slivka, when do you want us, if we have anything to send to you, when do you want us to send it to Mr. Davis?
But we're not on a burning time schedule, so 2 weeks or less.
Okay. And then second question I had is, when do you expect any of these ordinances to be introduced? Would it be closer to go live?
When do you?
Yeah, I think Dan and I have talked about this before. I mean, we don't, we would be looking in the probably short to mid-run here, probably within.
Yeah, I think while it's fresh in everyone's minds, we'd like to prepare an omnibus ordinance that covers all these different chapters of code that deal with property tax. It covers what we presented today. And then, let's say if there's a month for the assembly to think about it and think, if you're okay with what we're proposing, then it'll probably take another month at the most to develop it. So then you're into probably September. Maybe we'll try September, so we're not right into your budget time. So we can try that, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
I don't know if that answers it. Are we expecting these to be effective in?
The effective date would be once the system goes live.
2022.
But we go ahead and get the legislation, because they do program based on the rules in the code. So that's a good point. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just happened to think of a question back on slide 11 about the business property returns. And with the COVID-19 situation this year, did we have an increase in the number of late filers or non-filers this year because of the pandemic?
Yeah. So we actually had quite an extensive conversation about that, and the actually is we actually had a decrease. Every year we get roughly, on average, we collect about $135,000 in late fees. This year it looks like it'll be closer to $105,000. So it's a penalty. You only have to file the return. You don't have to pay anything. You just have to file the return. We extended, you did, thank you very much, the due date from April 20th to May 20th already. And so that may have been helpful in reducing the number of people that were actually late in filing.
Well, that's actually good news. I thought many of the businesses might not have had cash flow enough to make.
So just a reminder, no money was due. They just had to file. They know on January 1, this is my property, so they have from January 1 till the due date to file their return, which says, yes, this is my property. We get that, we do the mill rate, and then we show up with the bill, and you're about to see on your agenda pushing the due dates. We're going to push them 2 months out, so as opposed to being August and October, they're going to be moved to October and December this year, again, as an accommodation for the businesses that were impacted.
Okay.
And that's when the payment will actually.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You might have mentioned this and I missed it, but when you were talking about the idea of going to a penalty for non-filers, at what point do you know somebody is a non-filer versus a late filer? What was going to be the distinction there?
Yeah, that's a good question, and typically what happens is we kick out a couple of roles, so we do a personal property role, and so we're looking to actually change that a little bit. That doesn't require municipal code, but once we get close, within a couple of weeks of us having to actually put out a value for personal property, we have to put out a value, and so that's when we would have that distinction for that. There's nothing in code for a hard date of when a late becomes a non-filer.
Okay, but do you have some ideas about where the threshold is? I mean, where's the breaking point? I mean, if somebody doesn't file for 2 years, they're definitely late, but are they then considered a non-filer?
So I think with your question, I don't have a short answer for that, but I think we can take your question and address it in this little code.
I guess through the chair. So if you're a business owner that has business property and you do not file a return by the due date, which this year was May 20th, you are a non-filer. The question becomes, that is actually now an opinion.
Good question.
It's a challenge in terms of when is it late, but I think, yes, I will defer to Jack. Take it offline, we'll come back with a better answer.
Yeah, I think right now, like I said, I don't have a really great answer for you, but I think that's a really good question, and I think we can think about that when we are looking to implement this process.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions on my phone or in person. All right, thank you so much for the presentation, and looking forward to seeing the ordinances soon. I'm going to end this work session.